and I want to be like, yeah, cognizant of people
Yeah,
around
I
me.
definitely want to be. Yeah, I can set up like kind of what this is going to look like if you want, or you can do whatever you want to say. But
Oh yeah, good point. Let me give
I'm ready
you
to
a
roll
quick
if you.
intro. So for those of you who don't know Blake, um, Blake is awesome. For a start, we're good friends, and you're going to get so much value out of this session. You love to over deliver. I know that for sure. Um, Blake has mastered tracks or works with clients like POD, Chicago, Cheap Trick, Ted Nugent, Marseille, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, Nine Inch Nails, Hanson. So an incredible um, portfolio there of clients. And not only that, he's the founder of mastering.com, which is, I think, the place that's created the most mastering engineers in the world. So you're in really good hands here. Not only someone who's performed at the peak of the game in the mastering world, but also in the education world. So take it away, Blake.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. I'm super excited to see y'all and be with y'all. I'm uh glad we got some of the tech issues figured out now. Everybody's on YouTube, but I'm so excited for this. So basically, here's what we have in store. I'm going to try to go through a presentation, if you will, and walk through um, basically what it takes to be able to truly master by yourself and master it like a pro. And so that's the goal. That's the big idea. And we're gonna even going to look into like how do we actually take those skill sets and offer this to clients as well. So a lot of cool like return there. But generally speaking, we're gonna go through that together. Save your questions for sure, because at the end, what I want to do is do a couple things. One, I'm going to give you a bunch of resources so that everybody's on this webinar can just have these resources. They're basically cheat sheets, like mastering cheat sheets. So they're specifically tailored to mastering. Um, and you can just use them and they're yours for free. You can just take them. The second thing that'll happen is I have a really cool thing I want to share with you guys afterwards. And then third is I want to be available for Q&A. So if you've ever wanted to understand anything about mastering, I'm happy to speak to you directly. And I'm sure Rob will field those questions to me very, very nicely. So here we go, y'all. I'm going to just share my screen really quick. Let's do this. Okay, because I can't see y'all anymore, Rob, you just let me know if things are blowing up on your end, all
Will
right?
do.
Okay. So I'm just gonna keep rolling, y'all. Again, save your questions. I want you to interact with me a little bit. Um, I can see the chat, by the way, just a little bit, so I might be asking you guys to participate, but this is what it is. Master song from start to finish. This is kind of a partnership with mastering.com and Musician on a Mission. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And what you won't be getting is a bunch of, oh, try this EQ with this thing and try this compressor for this thing. I'm not into tips and tricks for this. This is going to be an inside out kind of approach to mastering from a master engineer who's done 30,000 plus songs or whatever. So let's get rolling. So let's set up who this is for. This is for basically artists, producers, engineers. So artists and musicians who produce themselves and have a pretty good understanding of like composing, mixing, production, but really kind of know a little bit about the mastering process, but not a ton. Or for people who are like producers who like collaborate with other artists and producers, or like those engineer types who offer, mixing and mastering services to clients, or really for anyone who like really loves creating music for themselves or for others who enjoy improving their producing skills. If that's you, then you're 100% in the right place, and it makes total sense why you're here. um, so here's what we're going to do in the next hour. And it'll probably be a little bit less than that now that I think about it. We're going to have four things that we're going to kind of cover. How to master a song from start to finish. And it's going to be these transformations that we're going to need to go through. So one is how to stop creating sonically amateur sounding music and finally achieve like Grammy winning quality in your own music. Two, we're going to talk about this thing called the 2-second ear. So how to listen to your final mix and within 2 seconds know exactly what to do to get it to radio ready sonic quality and industry standard loudness. And then three, the ideal sound. So how to stop wrestling with different plugins and techniques and all that nonsense, and just how to actually get the sound in your head or be able to beat your reference tracks, but know how to actually get the sound you're looking for. Then 4, how to stop looking at different articles and YouTube tutorials that never really get you across the finish line, and actually have your own proven system of EQing and compressing that actually works. So the secret in mastering is found mostly in EQ compression. So let's keep going into this. Some house rules here. I just want to warn y'all, like for those who shouldn't be on here, who this is not for are like creatives who don't know their way around like FL Studio or Pro Tools or Logic. If you're just kind of bouncing around and you're like a total beginner, this probably just isn't for you, because we're going to be talking about some high level stuff with mastering. So just jump off the call if that's who you are, or you could stick around if you're interested. Who this is also not for is who thinks that you know everything about mastering. I'm like all for the way up is down, trying to understand and learn. Even after many years of doing this myself, I'm still learning. So just like an attitude going into this. However, if you don't know what mastering is, this isn't like a lesson on what is mastering. There should already be a pretty good understanding about a general understanding, basic understanding about what mastering is. And this is not for those who aren't serious about doing whatever it takes to create industry standard Grammy winning quality masters. If you're kind of just a beginner hobbyist who's not that dedicated to this, then this might not be the best thing for you, mainly because mastering focuses on getting that 90% to 100%. So we focus on the top tier quality of our music. So does this sound like you? And I've talked with so many producers who might be like this. Maybe you're a full stack producer. You can handle every aspect of the music production process, but you can't master yourself. You can do mixing, producing, recording, writing, all that stuff, but not necessarily mastering. And every time you put your final master up to, say, like your favorite artist or your favorite recording or genre, your mix still just sounds really dull and amateur. Or maybe your mix sounds great, but no matter what you do, you just can't get your final master to sound as loud as your references. Really, the big question is this: does it sound like you have a huge blanket over your speakers when you listen to your final master? If it does, please let me know in the comments. I just want to get like a good feel for like if this kind of resonates with you. Mainly the whole blanket over the speakers thing. That seems to be the main thing that a lot of people are struggling with from what I found. Now, this may be another element of you where maybe it's you can get these results, but underneath it, you're not that confident. So you're confident you can provide quality production for yourself and the people you work with, but you aren't confident in yourself to provide excellent mastering. Or maybe you don't know what you're worth. Like, you're an expert in what you do, but you still feel like you can't charge like top dollar for something like mastering. Or maybe there's other producers in the industry that that you're better than them, yet they still have that like sonic quality edge that you want. Do any of these ones personally resonate with you? Whether it's confidence, knowing your worth, or knowing that you're better than other producers, but you can't get the sonic quality? If so, then let me know. But this is really who this is geared towards, to be honest. So the real problem is if this is kind of where you're at, you're basically stuck in the old way of mastering and haven't moved to the highly effective, personally tailored, proven new way of mastering. That is mastering yourself. And I'm going to try to convince you today that you can do this yourself. So once you move to the new way and actually doing it yourself, everything will change. You're going to start to see a major difference in the sonic quality of your masters. You'll be able to, and I guarantee you if you do this, match your mind, which is get the ideal sound. You'll be able to execute exactly the sound you're looking for in your head with precise techniques that you can replicate for every genre and production that you're working with. The thing with mastering is it's kind of genre agnostic. It can cover all these different grounds. Switching to the new way will also get you to have loudness without over compressing. So you'll be able to trust yourself to get final masters to industry standard loudness without compromising any dynamics by squashing your mix with compression. A lot of battling between like it's loud but it's not dynamic, it's dynamic but it's not loud. We're going to cover both of those things. And also sonic clarity without over boosting. So you'll be able to really get the blanket off the speakers and have pristine clarity that competes with your references. And you'll have confidence in yourself because you'll be able to unapologetically offer mastering to your clients and feel confident that you have what it takes to compete with the industry giants. And really, once you move to this new way and actually believing yourself that you can do this, you're going to start trusting your ears. So you'll be able to trust your ears and know what changes to make with your processing, and know that the changes you make are the right ones, not just good ones, but the correct ones. and ultimately have ears that you can count on. And really, something that a lot of people don't think about is you'll be able to trust your room. You'll be able to know with full assurance and confidence that what you hear from your speakers, no matter what the quality, is objective truth. So you don't have to do any more of those car checks. I know everybody knows what that feels like going out to your car. Although I don't have a car anymore now that I live in New York, but I know what that feeling's like going out to your car and just making sure it's correct. Really, the goal of this is once you move to the new way, you're going to overcome the hurdle and be proud of the quality of your work. You'll be able to step up your game and become someone who always produces excellent sounding masters 100% of the time without having to search high and low for, the secrets of the pros. You'll be able to really become the pro that holds the keys to that Grammy winning quality in your hands. So that's what we're going to focus on. That's the shift that we're going to try to make. Now, this is probably the most important part of the entire presentation is this old way of mastering. There are really 6 ways to do this, and I'm curious to know which one of you guys do which, do whether you do YouTube or Isotope, but here's kind of the old way. The old way is you have your final mix, right? And then it's all sounding great. You work tirelessly on it, and then you're ready to go master because obviously it's not loud enough or whatever, or you know that you need to check the box of mastering. So, what do? You go to YouTube. You look up tutorials on how to master, and then you find scattered, conflicting information that only teaches a small amount of what you need, and really it doesn't match up to your song. They're mastering some song that has a completely different style than the song that you're working on. So that's the old way of handling this. The second way, which a lot of people are familiar with in the past, is you hire a mastering engineer. So what you're doing is you're trusting someone else with your mix who costs top dollar, and hopefully they end up capturing the sound that you have in your head. This is not a bad option, to be honest with you. But ultimately, what I'm trying to try to convince you of today is mastering isn't something that you check off the box with. If you become that mastering engineer, it'll allow you to push back on your mixes and your production so that you can eventually capture the sound you have in your head, as opposed to just putting a band-aid on something that might be wrong on a deeper level. The third old way of doing this is guesswork. So you could just try it yourself, right? Start throwing up some plugins, turning some knobs, trying everything by kind of figuratively throwing a dart at a board without any target. I know that's like kind of how I started. It's just guesswork. I'm just going to try this, right? And then as you move into guesswork, you start Google searching and go, okay, what are some good mastering plugins? And then boom, you land on Isotope. So you play around with sort of the done for you mastering plugins and trust presets that sort of work, but no, you couldn't actually be proud of what you're doing. And you certainly wouldn't be like charging for this, going through AI and artificial intelligence of something that's incredibly creative, but you're relying on a robot to basically do this, which then moves into automated mastering where you use a robot to master your music. This is sort of a cheap one size fits all mastering. And I just want to pardon you today if you've ever done this. There's always forgiveness for those who do this. You are forgiven as long as you repent forever and never, ever, ever do this again. You don't trust a robot with your writing. You don't trust a robot with your mixing, with your producing. Why in the world would you trust a robot with your mastering, with automated mastering? Maybe because the knowledge gap is there and you just feel like you have to check the box. I empathize for sure, but there's forgiveness for this. Or really, the last is to give up. I see this so much. You just put up your song on SoundCloud and just let the normalization of streaming service take care of it. That's basically it. That's what we're looking at with this old way of mastering. I really want to know from the majority of people here which one you guys rely on the most. Really curious to hear. Okay, so obviously I tried all these approaches to mastering, and all that gave me was honestly garbage sounding mixes with my own music. And even though I was extremely confident with my mixing techniques, I felt like horrible charging my studio clients for mastering because I couldn't give them amazing masters. And I was embarrassed when I told them to hire a mastering engineer because I did everything else. And one day, when I realized I was throwing potential mastering clients away, looking, everywhere for a mastering engineer I could trust, trying to do anything I could to get my mixes sounding radio ready and competing with the industry professionals. I decided to make a shift. It was a decision I made as opposed to keep hitting that brick wall. No pun intended. And once I did that, I was able to get instant clarity and quality. When I made that shift, I found myself for the first time pumping out final masters that sounded exactly like my references or even better than the sound that I had in my head. So for you guys, it's not going to be one of these things where you just download information and you go apply it. You actually have to make a mental shift and make the decision to say, you know what, I can do this. And a lot of what I see is a mental hurdle that needs to overcome, not tips and tricks, not techniques. It's actually a decision that you need to make. And once you make that decision, you can actually become this mastering engineer. And that's what I did. When I made that decision, I decided to become a mastering engineer. And when I did, I started charging top dollar for clients as a mastering engineer and had clients coming back to me again and again because I unlocked really the secret to that pristine, polished, radio ready sound. And I was able to build a career out of this. I started getting quality masters with my own music, but then I started mastering, for my friends, and then eventually started and became the number one standard industry mastering studio. And really, all because I made the shift and started mastering myself. And only I knew the sound that I wanted in my head, and no one else could give it to me. So, in this webinar, that's what I'm going to show you how to do exactly the same thing, but quicker than I did. Even if you never plan on becoming a professional mastering engineer like I did, I'm going to show you exactly how to get the same results that I do and that I help other people to do. So, as Rob said, my name is Blake LaGrange. My whole thing is I started and built the number one industry standard mastering studio, mastering.com. With a name like mastering.com, you know that I'm very serious about mastering. I live and breathe this stuff, man. So, not only do we pump out great masters within our studios, but we also turn people into their own mastering engineers and start offering this to other people as well for their own music and for clients. So, this is the classic. Like I literally started in this little bedroom with a few plugins. I was like 18 years old with a few plugins and then, just a couple pieces of gear. And then I worked my way up to build a studio from the ground up. So I built a custom studio, basically to handle all of my clientele from the ground up. So this is like a little walkthrough of the studio that I had on the West Coast that I started building from the ground up. And it was so fun to design and build this, but that's kind of where I shifted, as you can see the Hendrix poster there. And then I pumped out a ton of volume, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that volume, and we worked with a lot of people. Last year alone, we mastered like 11,000 songs or something ridiculous and consistently provide reader-ready masters to clients worldwide. So pretty sweet, pretty fun. All right. As Rob said, here's some people I worked with all over across the board. I honestly hate not name dropping, so I'm just going to skip right through this. Who cares what I do? Just because I'm an accomplished mastering engineer doesn't really mean much unless I've actually helped people. So that's why I started mastering.com, honestly, to help others get the quality that I get on a daily basis. And I've been fortunate enough to build up a clientele that trusts me in my work. You can see all these glowing reviews and so forth. But really, what is this new way? That's the main thing that I want to communicate to y'all, is how can you actually get the same results with your masters that I'm getting with my clients' masters? Really, it's the new way, which is to master yourself. Again, I'm going to convince you that this is not only a viable option, but the way to really unlock something, especially if you are producing your own music. Because this is true. No one knows the vision behind your music better than you do. Nobody does. And if you can truly unlock that vision from within and overcome the technical hurdle and start applying these techniques to mastering, you will immediately get the results you're looking for. It's something that you need to apply to yourself because mastering isn't this thing that you check off a box with. It's something that you decide to do so that you can unlock this creative vision, so that you can allow it to push back on the entire process and really get that sound that you have in your head. That's what I'm going to try to convince you of today. You can absolutely do this. I just have to kind of say that. You can absolutely master yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that you need millions of dollars of gear with 20 plus years of experience to master. This is a total myth. All you need is a proven method that will unlock a side of you never knew that you had. My goal is to pull back the curtains on mastering and show you exactly what to do. Okay, there are 7 transformations that you need to happen for you to get amazing masters. Y'all ready? Here we go. Here's the first one. This is the bulk of the training here, y'all. Take notes, get a sheet of paper ready to go. This is really the thing that you this is the meat and potatoes of the whole training. Number one shift. Mastering is not mixing. You might hear that and go, okay, I knew that. But did you? Why are you then adding a signal chain in your mix bus? Why are you combining the two? Why are you allowing the mastering process to be in your mix session? That's not good. What I want you to do is just draw a hard line between the two from now on. From now on, guys, bounce out every single session to a final mix. You're going to have your final mix session, and then you bounce it to a stereo mix. You can have some like stereo mix plugins like on the final mix bus, but only if it's adding a little bit of color to the mix. Don't do any limiters and any of that stuff, but just bounce it out and open a new session and treat it as a master. Do not master in your mix session. I forbid you. From now on, do not do this anymore. Get rid of that process. Even just the mental shift of like, okay, I'm staring at a final mix on one track of my DAW, Pro Tools, Logic, whatever, with no plugins on it. I got to master this. You're going to realize, oh my gosh, there's a mental thing going on there that'll kind of psych you out. But that's the first thing you have to do. Stop mastering within your mixing session. Did I get that across yet or not? Okay, good. Broad brushstrokes is the next thing that kind of describes this whole mastering is not mixing process. A mastering engineer only boosts or cuts around 1 to 6 decibels total, no more. If you are extreme with your processing, you need to go back to your mix. Mastering is the holy grail. Don't abuse it. The way that this applies to you guys is if you go to your final mix bus on your most recent session, like I want you to bring that up later and see what you're doing. If you have plus or minus 6 decibels of EQ or gain reduction or anything like that, you are basically relying too heavily on that. And you need to look at all of those things in the signal chain and go, what is this actually trying to fix? Bypass it, go back to the mix and fix it. That's what's so special about mastering. It's not checking off the box, it's using the system to understand what's going on and then allowing it to push back on your mix to up the level of your mix so that you can go back to your mastering. Make sense? Okay. Fixing bad mixes. This is not allowed. If you find yourself fixing things in a mix during the mastering stage, just go back and fix it in the mix. A great master will never fix a bad mix. It just never will. And again, a lot of you guys are doing this on your final mix bus, the stereo bus, whether it's stereo bus compression or EQ or whatever. If you just bypass everything and your mix is gone, then something's up. So we just need to raise the bar of what mastering is. And you guys applying this stuff immediately, you'll start to feel the pain about this a little bit and it'll force you to become better. And really just segment your work. Don't undersell yourself. This is for those who are like working with some clients. I have a week in one of Musician on a Mission's courses or programs where I'm talking about income generation. This is something that I'm very, very passionate about. If you're one of those people, don't send your client back a final mix with this master on it. You want to send back to the client a final mix and separate your services so that once your client approves the mix, you can then move forward onto mastering and charge for mastering. You want to separate that process and not bulk it together. I charge $200 for mix and master. You got to stop that. I charge $200 for mix and $75 for master. Something like that. Because sometimes those clients will come back to you and they'll remember, oh, I remember when so-and-so did that master for us and saw the difference and we paid for it. They might come back to you for just a mix or just a master, but you have to segment your work and you need to stop, bulking it all together. And obviously, like I've helped a lot of people do this, but if you actually take the time to have this hard split between all the different aspects of the music production phase and treat mastering as its own entity, then you and your clients will be able to see the work that goes into mastering, like I said, and you will inevitably be recognized for your mastering work. You do everything with the songwriting, and then you record a voice memo, and then you record it, and then you send out kind of the board mix, and then you mix it, and then you send it out. Why in the world would you not separate it so that everybody can see the difference between mixing and mastering? That's the main thing I'm trying to get across to you. Okay, second thing out of 7, you need to become an objective listener. This is something that I need to almost figuratively beat with a 2 by 4 on, because this is something that just doesn't sink in for a lot of people. Right now, you need to become an objective listener. What do I mean by that? That means you need to become you need to go away from being a subjective listener. So what does that even mean? Well, the first element of this whole idea of becoming an objective listener is that you spend time refining your ears. So you must look at each mix as a set of frequencies, not just music. You have to know the language of frequencies. If you don't listen to music as an engineer, you will always listen as an artist. That's what happens when you shift things. If you separate the systems and you bounce out your final mix, like I said in the first point, bring it into the new session, something happens mentally there where you say, okay, I can't just listen to the song from start to finish and get into it and see what I need to do. I need to go in and out, chorus, bridge, verse, and just listen to frequencies. I need to know the language of frequencies, and I need to switch from sort of the right brain to the left brain. I need to turn this into an engineer side of things. I need to be more objective. I need to stop having opinions about this. I need to be true to what's going on frequency rise. Now, if you do that, what you say is going to be respected. So you have to know the industry so well that when you speak, everyone listens. You have to wear the hat of one who thinks and speaks objectively. Remember, mastering is the last step of the music production phase. You better have the last word that is correct. What in the world do I mean by that? Well, when somebody sends me a final mix to be mastered and I listen to it and I go back and I say, hey, the hi-hat is messing with the S's a little bit. Could you go back and reduce the overhead mic to 3 or 4 decibels, right around 6 dB? I think that'll make my job a lot easier, and it'll whatever I say. It's almost like, yes, sir, like anything, like I'll make it happen because I know what I'm talking about. And it's not because I'm saying, oh, I love this awesome mix, it's so wonderful, I can't wait to get this thing to pop. It's because I'm giving them objective rules, objective takeaways. And whether you're offering that to other people or yourself, you still need to have that objective listening kind of ear. So the third thing is, once you do that, is you'll become trusted. So you need all of your friends, clients, and collaborators and your producers in your network to view you as really the source of truth. Forget opinions. A mastering engineer pushes back on every mix with objective truth about the sonic and dynamic spectrum. That's the whole idea about this, is you want to become trusted, and actually when you say something, it's truth. And so this only happens in the post-production side of things, a little bit towards the end of mastering or towards the end of mixing and then into mastering, and really be able to focus on the end result. So a mastering engineer needs to know really exactly how to apply the right processing so that every streaming platform and format will accommodate the final master. No one thinks of this. However, it's crucial if you want your music to translate properly on every format. I mean, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, Tidal, vinyl, all of this stuff. It's just like you get it all the way up to this certain point and then you go, oh, okay, I don't know how it's going to sound on all those platforms. No, you need to make that switch and go, okay, how in the world is it going to sound on that platform, and know what to do to offer that to people and to do it for yourself. You can only objective listeners can receive results. And obviously these are great things about what people have said about me in the past, but most producers can't even imagine that great mastering is what allows their music to stand out from amateurs. For real. I mean, objective listening from a non-biased perspective will allow you to view your mixes with a completely different mindset. And as soon as you guys take a hat off of the creative artist side of things and put on the hat of an objective engineer, you'll start to see everything through a new lens and bring out the absolute best in your music. But you have to make that mental switch. And I think the best way to do that is to piggyback on the first point, which is bring your final mixes into a new session from now on. Don't ever do anything else ever again, and start to make the mental shift by doing that visual switch as well. Okay, this is rad. This is more than just EQ. But the third is understanding the sonic spectrum. So I'm going to give you guys basically an approach to EQing once you bring in that final mix into that mastering session. Okay, Blake, how do I do this? What EQ do I use? What plugin do I use? Throw all that away. I'm not going to say any of that stuff. I need to give you a framework about how to approach an EQ. And this is how you do it. It's through three things in this order: problems, inconsistencies, and enhancements. Write that down, memorize that, tattoo that to your forehead. The sonic spectrum is in this order: problems, inconsistencies, and enhancements. Approach the EQ process in these three different segments. Don't jumble up the EQ process. Keep it simple and address these three aspects. Problems, pretty self-explanatory. First, take care of any problem that you hear in the mix. Once you have that final mix in your session and you're ready to master it, first take care of any problem. Don't think about making it sound better. Forget it. Compartmentalize it. Just think, what are the problems? Find it and fix it. The way that you do that is with surgical EQ. What I mean by that is if there's something humming in the room and it's just it went through the vocal mic, hone in, find that, fix it, and then remove it with a surgical EQ. Or if it's something a little bit bigger that can't be addressed that surgically, where the whole mix is just a little 200 hertz heavy. Or I guess for you guys, it would be like it's a little muddy sounding. That's what I'm talking about. First, go in and address the problem. You could do this with either one EQ or do all three of these with one EQ or three EQs, whatever you want. What I'm trying to say is it's not about how many EQ plugins you have. It's not about the correct sort of which frequencies. It's about the framework. You can use one EQ, three EQs, five EQs. I don't care. As long as you address these three in this order, then you're going to be just fine. So problems first. Second is inconsistencies. This is when you have 3 or 4 songs, like an EP of one project, and you've bounced it out and you have it in your final mix session, bounced out into your final master session. Those inconsistencies, you want to hone in on those specific songs. So here's what you do. You found the outliers within the whole project. Then hone in on specific inconsistencies from song to song to create a cohesive sound. For example, if you have 5 songs, for example, on an EP, and track 2 is like, wait a second, why is the kick drum almost non-existent? What's going on there? Sure, you can go back to the mix and fix it, but maybe you're going for a vibe there. Maybe that's what you wanted, and it's just a different vibe. Well, on the mastering side of things, if every other song, tracks 1, 3, 4, and 5, have this certain objective frequency spectrum and song 2 doesn't, go into song 2 and just address it. Okay, add more 60 hertz, add more 100 hertz. Okay, boom, did it. Process it, move on. Now we have a baseline of all these songs, and then you can move on to enhancements. Problems, inconsistencies. Last one is enhancements. Boost and cut the best in the song or the worst in the song. So this is what everybody jumps to first. Don't do that. Problems first, inconsistencies, then enhancements. Only after you've addressed the first 2 steps, you can move on and be creative with your EQing and bring out what sounds great in the mix. Only after that. Sometimes you'll go into problems and inconsistencies, and then you get to enhancements and you don't need to do anything. That's what's so beautiful about this. It's a mental framework. If you go into it and say, I'm just going to have an EQ and then swoop it and see what sounds good and keep it there, and then swoop and sounds what's bad, and then dip it, oh my gosh, you're going to be set up for not success. It's not going to be good. You want to apply this mental framework before you go into any of that stuff. So the sonic spectrum makes all the difference. A great master is, if you understand the sonic spectrum like a mastering engineer does, you can actually make the overall sound come alive in your mix. I mean, a small tweak in the mastering stage will make or break your mix. I guarantee it. Because here's the thing, y'all. I've listened to more unmastered music than I have mastered music at this point. I just get in the studio and I just have a ton of unmastered music sent to me, and I master it and I send it off. So I can kind of dictate what's going on in the industry now by what I'm doing. And I can tell you, this small tweak in the mastering stage, it'll make or break your mix. I mean, that's what's so great about this is if you have a bad master, if you spend all of your time getting in your head about the mix and just dialing that in, you'll be completely and totally you'd be blind to what's happening in the sonic spectrum. That's why you need to be able to split the difference between what a final mix is and what a final master is. Okay, here's the crucial question as I take a sip of water. I want you guys to answer this in the comments of the chat. Are you able to quickly identify within 2 seconds of playback what's sonically wrong with your mix? And then are you able to know exactly what you need to do to fix it and enhance it? Type yes or no, please. I just want to see here. What I mean by this is, let's say theoretically, like I said, you take your final mix, you bring it to your master session, you go to the chorus, you loop it, and you just press play. 1, 2, stop. I need to cut 500 hertz at 3 decibels. I need to boost 16K, 2.5 decibels. I need to use a Pultec EQ at 60 hertz to let the kick drum separate itself from the bass guitar. I need to use an SSL compressor. I'm going to use a Pro Auto limiter. Boom. I know exactly what I need to do. Let's do it. Can you do so? Yes or no?
Some
What's that, Rob?
yeses, very few. Mostly like 99%.
Okay,
No.
got it. The yeses, anybody who says yes, email me. We'll hire you. This is great news. I love it. Okay, because that's the thing that I've been able to kind of transform to do, and that's kind of what I want to help you guys get to do. So here's kind of the exercise. The next time you're about to go from a final mix to a master, I want you to bring that in, and I want you to do exactly that. Go to the chorus, 2 seconds, boom. And I want you to have a blank sheet of paper and write down everything that needs to happen. And it might start like this, guys. It might start, sounds a little muddy, or sounds a little harsh, but I want you to think of those buzzwords first. And then once you start doing the 2-second thing, I mean, oh my gosh, you guys will start seeing a massive difference in how you master your stuff. I mean, you're going to start translating those buzzwords into frequencies. And with this cheat sheet that I'll give you at the end here, if you stay, it's going to be so much easier for you guys to do that, because the 2-second ear will allow you to hear the buzzword. You go to the cheat sheet, you have the frequency there, and then you attach the frequency to the buzzword. So if no, then you're in big trouble if you want to. You're in big trouble, but don't worry, we're going to be able to address this right now. Unfortunately, here's why you don't have a 2-second ear. Here's it, guys. The majority of musicians, I'm talking to you guys. I'm a musician too, by the way. I've got a guitar in the background. I'm a musician, but unfortunately, the majority of musicians only think about 5 things. They think about the song structure, the tones of the instrument, getting good tone, you know what I mean? Like the lyrics, you know, the melodies and the arrangements. This is all creative stuff. Unfortunately, the majority of engineers only think about this. This might be you too. Which amp do I use? Which EQ do I use? How do I mic the drum set? Which delay do I need to use in the vocal? The levels of each track. This is probably what you start asking if you're a musician. Once you start going into the mix side of things or the recording side of things, you start asking these questions. But that will keep you from seeing the sonic spectrum in an objective way. What most artists, engineers, and producers overlook is the sonic spectrum. Okay, this will creep you guys out. It's pretty cool. Here's what I'm talking about with the sonic spectrum. Here's your song, okay? This is your painting of your song. You spend all the time in the world getting your mix perfect, but still, something's off. It's black and white. The overall sound isn't quite there. It's obvious something is wrong. You get your final mix to the stage, and then here it is. You've spent all this time making this beautiful portrait, and then boom, you attempt to master your music. Here's what ends up happening. Your mix, even though you worked tirelessly to get it to sound right, ends up sounding like this, just a bit off. You go, I see it. It's a great song, and it's a beautiful mix, and it's all there, and I can't believe you guys aren't signed yet, kind of thing. But what's going on here? There's something quite off, and nobody can really put their words to it. They just know that it doesn't sound correct. You need to understand that the only way for you to take your mix to the next level, where everything sounds objectively right, you have to master it correctly. And only you know how your masterpiece was intended to sound. Mastering engineers can come close, but if you can crack this code, you'll be able to unlock the sound that you had in your head right when you started the project. Now, you may be painting a beautiful picture, you know, working tirelessly to get your music and mix sounding just right. However, when you begin to take a step back, the portrait that you wanted to sound like this from the beginning of your project ends up sounding like this. It's like, what the heck? This is all just something off, because you've failed to zoom out and think of things objectively as a mastering engineer. Now, You'll listen to your final mix, compare it to your favorite artist, and they simply just won't compare. And you'll just be confused. You'll end up being confused and wondering what went wrong. Is it my mix? Maybe I should have used that other guitar amp. Maybe we need a new singer. Maybe it's my room. I don't know. And then you'll just be frustrated. You'll end up being frustrated because you know it's a great song. I mean, it was magical when you wrote it, right? You know it's a great song and you know you have a great mix. You know that it's great. But the only way to achieve mixes that stand up to the rest of the industry is to understand the sonic spectrum. Truly. And you can have amazing song, amazing gear, amazing mix, but if you don't understand the sonic spectrum the way a mastering engineer does, you'll end up with music that completely falls short, throwing all of your hard work out the window. This is, by the way, the city that I live in. I didn't take this picture, but it was just the best way I could try to communicate this. So you'll need real help with actual results. I mean, what's cool about this is I actually like help our students understand this on a practical level. In order to actually see results, you have to wrap your mind around this concept of the sonic spectrum. This is something that I teach everybody that's in our community. I believe every producer can understand the secrets of looking at frequencies objectively as long as you have the actual knowledge to address it. Now, here's the fourth thing. If you didn't already pick up on this, the sonic spectrum is EQ. Okay? Fourth is dynamic spectrum. This is focusing on compression. So here's what this looks like. When you listen to a song from start to finish, you guys know what this is like when you hear a good master. You want to be taken on a journey. I'll tell you something right now. If your mix is squashed, then the listener will subconsciously not be taken on that journey. There's something that happens in the subconscious when you take transients and decibels and squash them in a certain way. That emotional thing that you need to go through to listen to a great song is just gone. You really must overcome this subconscious problem by approaching a compressor the right way. If you unlock exactly how to use a stereo compressor, it will give your mix that three-dimensional feel that you're looking for. And the reason why your mixes are lacking depth is probably because you're looking at your mix on a two-dimensional plane. So if you're peaking left and right on every limiter and compressor you add, then you're in serious trouble. But you should know better by now. What you really need is precision accuracy from a trained expert. So Thomas, like this is something that I love, like bringing up a lot. Is somebody I helped called Thomas. He had this issue with his dynamic spectrum, so he just couldn't really understand what I was saying. So I just jumped on a call with him, helped him really see that it was really his room. So I helped him diagnose his room and processing, use a speaker calibration software that we're linked up with. And I was able to run this, by myself in our community. And in no time, he started seeing things in color and really this truly a three-dimensional experience every time he approaches his mixes. So it could be one of those things where your room's all messed up. But really, you need to be able to hone in and dive in and see what it is that it is. Is it compression? Is it how you're hearing things? Stuff like that. Now, the fifth way is to have specific tools. So here's the kind of the secret of all this. You don't need like 20 plugins. I don't know why people go crazy on Black Friday and buy like all the plugins that they need. Actually, I do know why. I've been there. But really, let me help you with this. I'll save you some dollars when it comes November. You just need to stick with a few tools that do the job. Here's what you need when you approach your mastering session with the plugins that you need. 4 things: saturation, EQ, compression, limiting. That's it. Saturation, what I mean by that is you need to have an arsenal of different saturation processing. This takes care of transients. It helps with perceived loudness. It's something that I use on 20-30% of our masters. The next is EQ. You must have a few stereo EQs to address these 3 things, guys: problems, inconsistencies, enhancements. Do you have EQs that address those 3 things? Do you have one EQ that addresses all 3 of those? And do you know how to approach those? The next is compression. A mastering compressor is much different than your favorite compressors used in mixing. You need to have 2 or 3 stereo compressors to choose from. And then last is limiting. Everyone talks about limiting as a tool to add volume, but this is actually widely misunderstood. there's a need to understand which specific limiters actually provide value to your mix without killing your dynamics. So the way that that works is you just need saturation to handle peaks in a creative way, so you don't have to rely on compressors. An arsenal of 3 to 6 EQs, not all at the same time, but ones that you just know, love, and trust. 2 or 3 stereo compressors that you know and trust, and then 2 or 3 limiters, and just be able to pick between those two. I have to the point now where I have like 3 things on my master bus, and it's how you use the tools. So you need specific tools. What you want to do is avoid plugin envy at all costs. Don't go searching around for a plugin that's going to give you the best sound. Rather, focus extremely hard on the specific problem you're having and then find a tool that will fix that specific problem. What I mean by this is when you are constantly working with your mix or your master and you keep running into the same problem, that's when you know you need to go get a new plugin. Don't go and do the other thing where you just get a bunch of plugins and now you just pick from them to do whatever we want to do. The reason why I have this up here is we give all of our people in our community a specific spreadsheet tailored to them of what they need for their personal projects. So it's super in depth, but it's something that you need specific tools to address. Objective listening plus the right tools will give you a powerful mental shift. Like John, this is somebody in our community. If you start looking at your final mixes as an unbiased objective listener and combine that with the right tools, you'll start to see major improvements with your masters. It's pretty sweet. So 6, almost done with these 7 transformations, is like I've mentioned before just now, is you know how to specifically use those tools. This is so crucial. It's not about the tools. Don't get me wrong. It's how you use those tools. Notice I haven't recommended any specific plugin because I'd be cheating you guys. It's about how you approach that process and which tools help you get that process done. And there's so much flexibility within that. So those sort of questions are: how do you handle the sub? 20 hertz to 80 hertz. Do I boost or cut low end? Is there a mix? Is the mix too harsh? How wide of a curve do I use? Is the mix bright enough? How do I boost without making it sound brittle? These are the questions you need to ask yourself, not which plugin do I use that sounds good for low end, or what's the best plugin for mid range, or what's the best way to get high end mixes. Which plugin works? I heard this thing is good. Avoid all those questions. These are the types of questions you need to ask. How do I actually approach the final mix going into my master with these kinds of questions? Now, the way that I'm going to help you do this, like I mentioned at the top of this webinar, is you can use this by attaching those buzzwords that you hear with that final mix to frequencies. So if you say to the end, I'm going to give you a cheat sheet here that's specifically tailored to mastering. So what it does is, I mean, it's so in depth. You'll love it. I spent so long making it. But what you're gonna do is your next project that you're working on, your final mix, you're gonna take that in, and I'm actually giving you stuff to do here. You're gonna take your final mix in, like I said, separate it all, and use this as kind of those buzzword tool things, and be able to apply all of this training immediately. And this cheat sheet's gonna get you there. And it might be hard to get it off the ground, but you'll see a dramatic improvement once you attach this training plus this cheat sheet. So the idea is to translate words into frequencies. I'm going to give this to you by the end of this webinar, by the way. So stick around for that. I'm also going to give you a stereo compressor. So the difference in mastering is huge with stereo compressors. Using a compressor as a tool for mixing is one thing, as you guys know, but you have to approach the stereo compressor much differently. You have to be able to have the right tools. I mean, being able to have the right tools, like I said, is going to get you halfway there. But a great engineer can use default plugins and make a radio-ready master. Guys, I still use Dverb as my main reverb, just as a side note. EQ and Dverb into my reverb channel. It's not about the tools themselves, it's how you use them. The bottom line, it's not about tools, it's how you use tools. And what I'll give you is another compression cheat sheet specifically tailored for mastering. So when you go away from this, your next final mix, what you're going to do is apply this training, bring in your final mix into a new session, approach it with problems, inconsistencies, and enhancements, have these 2 cheat sheets, just stick with EQ and compression and maybe limiting at the end and approach it much differently using these cheat sheets. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I should have gotten into this sooner. And what you'll end up finding is that you're going to raise the bar of your masters and you're going to go back to your mix and change everything within your mix to get it to another level so that you can bring it into the master session. Now, if you start to change your understanding about mastering, I promise you will get results like I do when I work with my clients. I've just seen this so many times. Both my mastering clients as well as my mastering students are like blown away about how great their mixes are sounding. It's really no secret. I'm basically telling you the approach. You just need guidance. So that leads me to kind of my last point is you have to invest in mentorship, guys, from somebody who's actually done it. It doesn't need to be me either, by the way. You just have to eventually, if you're serious about this, stand on shoulders of somebody who knows what they're doing. So this is like kind of a silly question, but it helps get the point across. If you wanted to go to Hawaii, would you just get behind the controls of playing with no training, no map, no guidance? Well, why not the same for your music? I mean, I've gone through it all, right? I've tried mastering music myself through YouTube tutorials, trial and error, spending countless of hours and thousands of dollars, trust me, on pieces of gear and plugins that I really just didn't need. And I can never get that time and money back. And for years, I was undercharging for my services and never growing my mastering because of the confidence that I lacked and the specific roadmap that I didn't get to where I needed to be. Now, I've gone through, to be honest with you, I've gone to audio engineering school, done internships at studios. I've worked 12-hour days nonstop to try to figure all this stuff out at the expense of myself, my family, my clients who were never happy. And it wasn't, to be honest with you, I remember 3 mentors that I had growing into this. It wasn't until I received mentorship and a specific roadmap tailored to me and a proven system that I actually got the results that I desired. And after everything clicked for me, I was able to build one of the most well-known mastering studios in the world and work for major level artists doing this from all over the globe and then helping others do this as well. Believe me when I say this, guys. This training's helpful, but there is a shortcut to be able to do this. There's a much shorter way for you to achieve the results that I get. Much easier than what I did. And I can tell you from experience that this doesn't have to be complicated. There's a much easier way, actually. And it's with mentorship from someone who knows how to do this, who has a proven system, and knows how to actually do it. So to kind of wrap this up, guys, you have 2 options here. You can take this and digest it, and I hope it's super helpful. And I'm just like very excited to share all this with you. But if you wanted to move forward in this, really, you can go at this alone and continue to fight this uphill battle of searching for the best and fastest way to finalize your mixes. But I've seen this. It'll leave you in a place of sort of frustration, and you'll basically be banging your head against the wall and keeping you in the amateur to semi-pro camp. That's kind of the first option. The second option is to learn a proven system from somebody who's not only figured out the best and easiest way to master, but from someone who is one of the best in the world at it and who has helped literally thousands of people just like you get great sounding masters by themselves and actually start offering it to others. Now, if you're smart and you go with option 2, I would love to invite you to join our community and just dive into this. Here's what you're in for in terms of results of speed if you were to dive into this. The first 4 weeks look like this. The first week will get you up and running by knowing exactly how to compete with the loudness war. I'll also put together a goal with you, specifically one-on-one, to see like what you want to achieve with your music together. The second week, I'll show you how to get all of these creative ideas outside of your head and translate it into practical steps to get the sound you want. Then we'll go through exactly how to set up your session, know how to get your gain staging perfectly prepped for mastering. Third week, we move really fast, is we're going to get your room dialed in. So we're going to get it dialed in perfectly so you can become that objective listener in an objective environment. So we'll also get your room, not only your room, but your ears perfectly tuned so you can trust them and never doubt them again. We'll actually send you room tuning software. You and I will jump on a call one-on-one and just get your room figured out to where it's like, okay, boom, I know exactly what I need now to move forward in this. That's the third week. Probably one of my most fun weeks is working with people. Fourth week, within the fourth week, you've mastered something like 40 or 50 songs already. And you're going to be at a place where you're replicating the sound of your references in no time. The fourth week, I can promise you, your final reference master that you love, compared with your final mix, you'll be able to instantly be able to match it. And I'll show you exactly how to do that in the fourth week. Fifth week, I'll get you to conquer EQ. You and I will work together to build your own custom EQ arsenal. So we'll never have to worry about what to do with your EQ ever again. We actually hone in on problems, inconsistencies, and enhancements. And at this point, you've mastered close to like 100 songs. And then the 6th week, we start diving into compression like you've never understood it before. We're going to pick out like a few compressors that work well for you and your system to get the job done without questioning your process ever again. So the 7th week is where it gets really fun. Your mixes are finally loud without squashing the dynamics. We'll get you to a place where you're confidently mastering 200 plus songs at this point without worrying about streaming services squashing the crap out of your music like Spotify likes to do. The 8th week, this is within 2 months. We have you prepping these mixes not only for yourself, but actually for paying clients. So never again will you have to worry about ISRC codes or fades or what format your music should be in. You and I are going to personally work together on to do what's best for you, you and your music and your business. Guys, that's only within the first 2 months. It goes so much further than that. Not to mention that I will help you get to the point where you're never, ever, ever doing mastering for free ever again. You'll feel confident enough in the quality of your music that you'll be able to charge for this, and people will gladly pay it because both you and them know that you can deliver. And by the way, my students work with me for life and we always crush it together. So there's no expiration date to this. I kind of have this lifetime mentorship going on throughout the whole process of working with you. I'm critiquing and directly speaking to your music as you're sending me files and so forth and helping you get to where you need to be fast. So no more guesswork. Just ask me everything and I'll answer. And this is just within the first 2 months, not to mention building and scaling out a business if this is something you wanted to do. So if this sounds like you and this is something you really want to do, and you want to finally have what it takes to receive Grammy-winning quality in your own music, over the next 7 days, literally, I've been working on this tech this morning. My team and I have blocked out our calendar to help set aside a time to talk with you to see if we can help. It'll be 45 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to understand you and your music, and we'll basically map out an exact game plan for you to get your mastering like a pro in no time. And I promise you, this will be the most valuable 45 minutes to spend on your music this year. It'll either be a call with me or one of my team members who've gone through this. I'm going to take the first 20 or so calls, but I want to get on the phone and chat with you to see if this is like a good fit for something that we could work together on. Again, who's this for? It's only for artists and musicians who produce themselves, have a really good understanding of everything else, but don't know much about the mastering process. Or for producers who are pretty good in their DAW and collaborate, but who want to be at top level producers in their game. Or for engineers who are offering services to others, but want to never do this for free or actually charge top dollar for this. And for anybody who loves to create music for themselves or for others, who enjoy improving their own producing skills. But you must be a serious candidate that does things to the best of your ability. And you need to understand that there's some skin in the game. I only have so many people I have so many people wanting to work with me that I only want to talk with people who know that like this is like I'm very, very committed. Basically serial perfectionists and great producers who want to go from 90% to 100%. And honestly, I turn down like 40% of scheduled calls because there's just some people who don't have any time or resources to invest in themselves to become next level industry professionals. So guys, if you want to actually chat with me, my team, just go to the right now. There's a button that should be available. Just click it right now. I'm told that there are over 2,400 people on this webinar, and our schedule can only handle about 100 or so calls over the next 7 days. So you got to apply now. I would love to chat with you. And here's what I want to do for the next two things that I want to do. One is answer any questions you might have about anything about this, about mastering, whatever it may be. Happy to dive into that. And then two, you guys got to let me know if our calendar fills up because I actually have to go in and like change some things. So let me know. But that's basically it, guys. I'm super stoked to possibly be chatting with you guys, and I want to answer any questions you might have. Rob?
Awesome, dude. That was killer. Just so you know, anyone who's watching on YouTube, there won't be a button because obviously we had to kind of like move things over there because the webinar software wasn't playing nicely. So you can also, if you do want to book a call with Blake or someone on his team, you can go to mastering.com/session, SESSION, and you will be able to book a call there. So let's do Q&A, guys. Anything mastering related? We're in no rush. Cheat sheets. Yeah, let's give out cheat sheets as well. So get the questions coming in, and kind of while we're doing that, I'll get the cheat sheets. I think we're gonna have to set up a URL for that as well. But this is your chance to ask someone who's mastered thousands, tens of thousands of songs, any questions about mastering. So great opportunity, make the most of it. Chuck those questions in the chat, and I'll look at YouTube as well. So let's get the cheat sheets together. I'll give you a first question first, and while you're doing that, I can get the cheat sheets. So
sure.
So this might refer back to something you spoke about already, Blake, and I can guess what your answer is going to be. But okay. Steve asked, what stereo compressor plugins do you recommend?
Interesting. It kind of defeats the purpose of my main thrust of my argument, but I would love to still answer the question. I personally rely on, if you're going to do just like plugins, I personally rely on like the API 2500, the SSL G-Bus, or the FGX slate to get my compression taken care of. And then I like to rely on limiting to kind of finish up the job. But I really want to push back and say that it has very little to do about the type of compressor that you use, because it just depends on your situation and what you're doing. It's about how to approach it. Although I found with my system, that's what I like to do. But I'd be curious, who was that from, by the way, Rob? Do you have their name?
Steve. I can't remember his first
name. Steve. I'd be curious to chat with you about that. Just try to get on the phone, and I want to learn more. I want to like understand the reasoning behind it. But I'd be curious to hear like what you were doing and see if we can come up with something a little bit better. So, yeah, good question though.
Awesome. So I'm just setting up a URL. I'll give you another one. Will stock plugins take you all the way?
The short answer is yes. We have, I'm trying to think of last survey we did. We have like 75 to 80 producers in our community that have recently just charged for their mastering. These are people making like a couple $1,000 a month. And all of them are using stock plugins. And I show people like how to do that, because sometimes it's like, listen, I only have stock plugins. It's like, great, you get it, because it's how you approach that as opposed to the tools that you're using. So the short answer is yes, but it really just depends on how you approach it. But that's not something I'm allergic to or something I'm afraid of, because we just work with people who are in that situation all the time.
Awesome. So this is an interesting question, because I saw a few people kind of discussing this in the chat. How many engineers do you work with inside your company? Because obviously, I think the thing that threw people is like, oh, last year we mixed 11,000 tracks, and it was like, God, how's that possible for one person? Obviously, that's not just you. So that's an interesting question.
Yeah. So the kind of secret behind this is I have a system down to where I can master a song between 8 to 12 minutes, and everybody in our community that like dive in and I personally work with, I try to get them to that level. So by the 9th week or so, they're mastering a song within 8 to 12 minutes. So the key is leverage, right? Like if you can get that system down where you do all the heavy lifting up front and just have the 8 to 12 minutes, you can bang out, I mean, think about it. You can bang out 5 tracks in an hour. And 8 hours a day? I mean, it can really add up. But we have about 4 engineers. I was saying about. We have 3 that are all on full time, but then 4 who are handling all this stuff. So yeah, between us, like we handle it just fine.
Awesome. So a question here about the program from Sasha. You're saying that in the program you master like 100+ masters. I assume I don't have to have 100+ songs ready for this program, right?
That's correct, Sasha. I think you said Sasha. Yeah, Sasha, it's I give them to you. So like downloads, you do them. You have to do them in order to move forward. I provide all that stuff. I give you all of kind of the frameworks and tools and like kind of everything you need to know to do those. But yeah, it's about throwing you in the water. So not only are there, I think it's more like 200 songs, but not only are there all the download files that I'm going to give you, but they're specifically given to you at certain times so that you only learn what you need to learn as you're going forward. So yeah, short answer is we provide you all that stuff. I'd be curious to chat with you. I'm because a lot of people bring their own songs and they're like, I need to master this by tomorrow, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's work together to do this. So it's a combination though. If you have your own songs, obviously we work together to get those mastered, first.
Awesome. Cool. And just a reminder, guys, mastering.com/session to book a call with Blake and his team. Let's grab another question here. So which are the standard settings for different streaming platforms? And that's a question from Gabrielle.
Gabrielle, which of this? I would need to know more info.
Maybe it's.
What do you mean by that?
Maybe it's a question around kind of like how do you approach different platforms?
Sure. I guess I could try to answer that. So like let's go straight to the analog. Like vinyl. I mean, we go over this in the 9th week of working together, of like mastering for vinyl, for instance. There are like certain things that you need to look out for, whether it's de-essing or phasing in the left and right, and then low end sub frequencies. You approach the EQ a lot differently if you do it to vinyl, and then you approach the limiting a lot differently if you do it to vinyl. Other than that, what I show in week 7, 8, and 9 of working together, Spotify has a normalization that they add that will crush your mixes. And so what a lot of people think that they have to do is, oh, I just need to like final master with some headroom, 14 LUFS, negative 14 LUFS or whatever it is, and I'll be good. But to be honest, that's not the case. It's all about dynamics. So if your song is very quiet, but it's a brick wall that's quiet, Spotify will actually mess with that. If it's very loud, but there's a lot of dynamics, Spotify won't really touch it. So it's about perceived EQ, dynamics within the song before you hit the limiter. But all of those things we cover like pretty extensively to make sure that you are like good for all these different platforms. And we always like constantly update it because everything's always updating.
Awesome. So this is an interesting one. Question from Darren. 3 mastering tips we can apply today and hear a difference.
The entire webinar. Honestly, I would literally just refer back to the training we had. One, I mean, I'm just like literally going to recap. Like one is get your final mix into a different mastering session. 2, do not focus on what EQ plugins to use, but focus on the approach. That is sonic problems, inconsistencies, then enhancements in that order. And then I would say one thing that I'll throw in here for free, if you will. I say this on our like one-on-one times with our producers in our platform all the time. I hear these final mixes from people of stuff that they're about to go drop onto a label, and they're like, hey, Blake, I need to hear what you think. And I look at their mastering process, and it's just fine. But one thing to get them out of the weeds of things is this. Is if you only had one EQ move to do, what would that be? And I don't mean if you only have to use one EQ plugin. I'm not talking about the Desert Island plugin. I mean, if you only had one EQ move to do, what would you do? And it forces you to zoom out to 30,000 feet and apply that first. So that's how to expedite the problem, inconsistencies, and enhancement in one sort of go. So I can give a bunch of tips and tricks, but I think the main thing is the big idea is how do you approach it and the philosophy behind it as opposed to what you do.
Awesome. Question here from Mark, and this came like the topic of stem mastering came up a couple of times in the chat during the webinar as well.
Yep.
He said, well done, informative. What about stem mastering? Easy to address specific problems in certain tracks?
Yeah, this is a great question. From Mark, you said, I think?
Yeah.
Okay. I love the question, Mark. Yeah, I mean, we cover that in the 8th and 9th week. No, yeah, of working together. So I'll say this: we cover all of that stuff within our like what we do, but I will give you a huge thing here. We not only do we cover all that, but I kind of dispel a lot of things about stem mastering. A lot of people think stem mastering is kind of like half mixing, half mastering, but in my world, that's not what it is. How I approach it is this, and if you guys know what stem mastering is, you guys will totally follow along. What I do is I have 3 to 5 stems per song. That's like what I do. I don't get any more. If I'm working with a mixing engineer or producer that has more, I tell them to only send me up to 5. And then 5 stems for one song. And here's what I do. I have that all in one session. I minimize everything, and then I just look at one stereo bus. I bus it all down into there, and then I master like I normally would. That's the secret to stem mastering, is not to go in and do, okay, what do I do with this track? What do I do with this track? You just ignore all of it, and then you master. Then once you start mastering, you run into things will start firing off in your brain, like neural pathways that are like, oh, I'm trying to fix the vocal that's battling with the acoustic guitar, and I'm making this decision, but I'm compromising. Boom. I have the stems. I'm going to go back and address just that thing I'm thinking about within the acoustic guitar and vocal, and then minimize and then go back. And then you continue to master. If you allow the stereo mastering process to unlock the stem mastering process, you're going to have a much more effective stem mastering process, if that makes sense. It's more of a philosophical approach, but that's a great question, Mark. I'm just curious to chat with you because you know what that is, then you could be charging double for it if you had that as a part of a service.
Awesome. So this is a good question. What is the number one issue or problem you see with the mixes you master?
Yeah, the number one problem that I see is that they're too scooped. I mean, I listen to more unmastered music than mastered music. And when I'm going to master something, the thing that I love the most is a nice sad face, because I can go in there and do what I need to do. But if people are trying to master within their mix, then it's like, I need to like reverse that, get it to a place where it's warm, and then apply my sort of mastering process. And it just adds to the layer of things. But if everybody had a final mix that sounded warm and it's kind of a sad face on the sonic spectrum, then it would make the mastering job so much more fun and so much more easy. So that's the number one problem that I see, is that people are just trying to master within the mix, and that is realized by having the most ridiculously scooped smiley face mix that I've ever encountered. Good question.
Awesome. And a few people have asked, can you master on headphones? Is mastering on headphones okay?
Can you? Yeah. Should you? No. So I specifically talk about this and work with people in like the third week of us working together. The whole point of having a room is this. Let me kind of address this very directly. Some might say, oh, but headphones are great because it's isolating everything else, and I can hear the definitions of left and right, and it's so much more easy to hone in. Yes, I know that. Here's what you miss out on. Crossbleed. The isolation that you have does not account for crossbleed. That is, things coming out of my left speaker hit my right ear and vice versa. And I need to be able to fight that battle in order to get a great sounding master. Now, in our third week of working together, I tell everybody who I'm working with, get to this certain point in your room and then move forward. A lot of people master in headphones because they don't think that they have their room dialed in, or they ever think they will be. But I basically get them to a point where, no, you can have it dialed in. Here's all the things you need to do. Get it dialed in, and now you don't need to rely on headphones anymore. So there should be no excuse after working with me after the third week. Having said all that, we do have a partnership with a headphone EQ compensation company for free that gives you all of this, and you can like dial in your headphones so that they become more objective, less scooped, less processed. But there's my long answer to a very simple question.
Yeah. Awesome. So a couple of questions about Cool and the program. So a few people have asked, how much is the strategy session?
Yep. It's $1 million. No, I'm just kidding. It's free. So it's 100% free. The strategy session is totally free. And the way that it works is like, it's free. I mean, that's the whole thing that we're doing this with Rob and Musician on a Mission, is we're offering this to you guys for free. And the whole point of this is, whether you work with us or not, that's fine. But you're going to walk away from this 45 minutes with a total game plan of what you need to do in order to get where you need to go. Most of the time, guys, we actually don't really talk too much about mastering. We talk about where you want to be as a producer or as an engineer or as an artist. And then we kind of reverse engineer that pathway and then give you that. And we'll show you how mastering is the thing that you're going to use as a lever to help you do that. And then, yeah, if you wanted to like continue working specifically with me on that, we'll invite you to like talk about that, and you can find out all that information on um, on that call. And that sort of thing, it just depends, in terms of price wise. But this call is 100% free. Um, that's why I want to talk with all you guys, because Rob's crew's the best. So totally free. There's no harm. I mean, like just book a call. It's free. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just as a reminder, in case you're not on the Easy Webinar site, mastering.com/session, SESSION, and that'll take you to the page where you can book your free call with Blake or someone else on the mastering.com team. So another question here about the program. Can we buy the online mastering courses and do the program at our own pace without calls like pre-made videos?
That's kind of a loaded question. I appreciate the question though. Don't think of it as a course, think of it as an ecosystem or a world. The best results that we see with people is an interaction of mentoring as well as content and action items that we do it. So yeah, if you wanted to join what we have, get on a call and we'll work out a game plan. But yeah, it's tailored to your schedule. So if you did want to move forward in working with me, it's not like you got to drop everything. It's 100% go at your own pace. If you want to go take a holiday, you can. If you want to come back in 3 years, you can. But it's for life, and it's completely go at your own pace. Where there's a lot of it that you watch by yourself and do by yourself, and action items that you do by yourself. A lot of it where you have to interact with me, where it makes sense to you. Either way, it's 100% set to your schedule and set to your own pace. So try to make it as easy as possible for everybody that's super busy. Because we work with a lot of people who are like full-time tech people in Silicon Valley, or they're full-time moms or whatever. And like a lot of those people end up quitting their jobs and doing music full-time after working with us. But a lot of those people don't want to do that. A lot of those people just want like amazing sounding stuff, but they want to fit it in their own schedule. And we just tailored it so that you can do both. Either way, book a call and we'll explore like what that would look like for you, because it's just specific to each individual.
Awesome. Cool. Generic question here. It sounds like mindset and belief are major components to success. What have you found to best help you in these areas?
Who's asking that? I love that question.
I lost it. I copied the question. I'm not sure I copied the name.
Okay, all good. Nameless, faceless question. I love it. It's basically, I could not agree with you more. Mindset, mind shifting, mindset stuff, philosophy is the best way to address all this. Or should I say, is the transformation that needs to happen. Here's what you do in order to expedite that process. Ignore all the noise. A lot of people think it's about like adopting new ideas, but what you have to do is actually ignore all the bad, which is like avoid like what plugin do I use? What tip do I need to do? All of that stuff, and just like ignore all the noise and ask questions about like approach and philosophy and how do I do this? And like that'll get you thinking in a new way that you never have before. Because a lot of people know how to do that on the artist side of things. It's not like, how do I write a great song? It's like, you already know how to do that. It's this intuition. But as soon as you get to the engineering post production side of things, you have to overcome that hurdle. So you start asking questions like, what do I do? What plugins do I use? Those are the wrong questions. You need to ignore all of those and approach it more from a philosophical point. So that's a very, ethereal way to answer it. But we uncover all that stuff. In fact, we have a whole month devoted, if you work with me, to like overcoming imposter syndrome and mindset and stuff like that. And it's so crucial, man. I mean, just working closely with somebody who in the music industry, whether it's me or somebody else, will help you expedite all that nonsense that you might be believing about yourself too. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it's helpful.
And that was a question from Nick.
Nick, thanks, Nick. I want to talk with you, Nick, because you're asking the right question.
Love it. Do you use a mastering template, or is every song approached individually?
Fantastic question. Bye.
I'll start copying the names. Another nameless one.
I'm making your job a lot harder, Rob.
It's Richie.
Template
I can search.
Richie, I love the question. Template implies a lot. There's we don't focus on mastering templates. We focus on mental template. So yes, but it's a mental template. No, we do not have a mastering template. It's not like you go and you have this preset thing and you just go to town. because it asks and answers the wrong question. What's the mental template? So within the second or third week into the fourth week of working together, you'll have that mental template to where you can use any plugin you want, basically. So it's all about mental template, if that makes sense, the approach.
Awesome. Which speakers do you recommend when mastering a project? And that question, I got the name that time from Killed Monk.
Say that again. Killed Monk is asking
Killed
what?
Monk is asking, which speakers do you recommend when mastering a project? It's like a gear question.
Yeah, Killed Monk. Great question. I hope I'm not annoying you guys by saying it's the wrong question to ask because it's more about your room than it is your speakers. You can have the best speakers in the world, but if you put them in a bathroom, it doesn't matter. So like when we work together on stuff, especially when we go through week 3, I recommend some speakers to use, but we spend a good 2 weeks specifically looking at your room to use your own speakers. A great tuned dialed in room with like KRK Rocket 8s will have infinitely more success than ignoring your room and getting nice Genelecs. So I can give you the kind of the answer you're looking for, which is I use NS10s plus a Genelec sub, as well as Genelecs, as well as ATC mains, but like that's not helpful. That's just me spitting off gear. The most important thing is your room over speakers any day.
Absolutely.
Great question, Kill Monk, or whatever it was.
Question from Colin. Is it a good idea to go to a music school or learn from people like you online and by practicing yourself?
Oh my gosh, do not go to a music school. Caleb, right? Colin. Rob, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I also had a bad experience at school. I know there are some, I have heard people who have had a good experience, but I didn't. So I can only speak for myself.
No, dude, like I'm down the street from Electric Ladyland Studios in New York, and I know all the engineers there, and I work out of there sometimes. Like all of them didn't go to college, and it's like it's all about. I'll tell you the fast track to get here. Do it yourself. Find a mentor. Follow everything that they say, and you'll just get expedited success. I'm telling you, like that's the way to do it. There's this formal education mindset that just doesn't exist in the industry. Because a lot of people think, okay, I got to graduate high school or whatever, and then like in order for me to get into a career, I need the credentials, right? So they go to college and get the credentials. They spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on it, or even half that, 10 grand, and it's just like, man, I have everything, but all of my teachers didn't actually get me to be working in the industry. So what we do for our success is by the end of working together, if you have like a substantial amount of paying clients, then we did our job. It's like real world experience. So that's kind of like, and if you don't want clients, like we have a different success metric, which is which label did you land, or basically we set up goals from the beginning, and we just get you to do those. Like real world results with like mentoring help is the fastest and best way to get there, hands down. If you're thinking about spending tens of thousands of dollars on music school, don't. Trust me.
Awesome. So guys, just a bit of an update. I'm like looking at how many calls you got booked here. I'm just like scrolling. It just like keeps going and keeps going, but there are still slots available. Until we'll hang around a bit longer. I want to be, cognizant of your time as well, Blake, but
I'll open up my calendar too if we have to.
Yeah, I think we're not quite there yet. There's still availability, but it's kind of it's getting close. So if you want to book your free call to speak to Blake or someone else on their team, go to mastering.com/session, SESSION. Should be links kind of wherever you're watching. I've been kind of chucking the link in there every now and then. Talk to someone on the team. It's free, no obligations. Get some help. And then if it's a good fit, you can learn more about the program as well. So question here from Dusky. Do you master in the box, out the box, or a blend of both?
Do I, or does one? I 80% of the time master in the box. I've got this epic setup where I have vintage Pultecs, a Clariphonic, a Shadow Hills master compressor that all of our people inside of our community have access to in the cloud. That's a whole different thing. And people can access it whenever they want. It's just an analog chain that's set up, and it's like robots are attached to it, and you could like use it in your DAW. All of our students use it. I use it too. But it's basically a blend of both. If I'm working with the majority of our clients, it'll be in the box. If I have a very big label that I need to, like a great artist with a huge label, and I know that they trust me, and I know that there's not going to be a lot of recall, I'll go pull out the big guns. But most of the time, I'm like, dang, why do I even have this stuff? I can just, it's about how you use the tools, not the tools themselves, man. Hopefully that's liberating for you guys, so now that you don't need hundreds of $1,000s of gear.
Yeah. That robot, I forget exactly which platform you guys use, but that robot stuff is freaking cool, man.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, we partner with the best and have our own like art, like for all of the members in our community. If they want access to it, they can just have it. So I went above and beyond to try to get people, like, it's like, oh, I need analog gear. It's like, no, you don't. Here's mine. Just use mine. Yeah. So I'm really serious about this stuff, man. I mean, it's mastering.com. You know what I mean? Like I'm going all out. I really want to help people and put the power back in their hands.
Man. Love it. Question here from Troy. When you make a separate session for mastering, do you keep all of your stems, or do you bounce it down to just a stereo mix?
Just a stereo mix.
Awesome.
Good question, Troy. Well, let me be less brash about it. Okay, Troy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Troy, here's why. If you are just staring at a final mix waveform, you can see a 30,000 foot view in one screen. It does something mentally for you. Don't just get out of that world, man. You're not mixing anymore. When you go to the master, just have the final mix bounce. That's all we need. Trust me, it'll be very tempting to go back and poke around with the stems, but that's the point of mastering. Is it's supposed to do that? You're leveling up the requirements for mastering, really. It's super, really, really, really good question, Troy.
Awesome. Question here from MesoTube. Can you talk about saturation? What is the tool as an example, and what does it actually mean?
MesoTube, love it, man. That's a funny name. Okay, let's talk about why saturation is an important tool. It's not to add a nice fuzzy harmonic nonsense. That's not what I'm talking about. Go just add an Oxford inflator at the end of your final mix if you want to do that. What I'm talking about is you have little flyaway transients. Transients are those, you look at the final wave file and then boom, there's a little spike there. You could slap a compressor and limiter on that. But if you have a saturation plugin, for example, or tape, like I have a tape machine if you want to, you can take those transients and cut them a little bit and really saturate them in a way where they're not flyaway transients anymore. They're clipped like a limiter or compressor would, but it's a tasteful clipping. And what that does is it adds perceived volume so that when you get to the compression stage, the compressor is not looking at all those transients. They're looking at a little bit lower set of transients, which allows you to get things louder, which means that once you go to your limiter, it has to do less work. And the way you do that, you can do that with a free saturation plugin. There's one free one that I use. I forget which one it is. It's literally just a silver knob. I use that all the time. Now I have the tape machine and I do all that too, but you don't need to spend a lot of money on a saturation plugin. Just one that saturates. Just one, not like, I'm not talking about sausage fattener. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, yeah, the soft tube one. That's the free one that you can use. You can also use like a J37, like tape machine kind of thing. That's what I would consider a saturation. But yeah, you're right, Rob. It's the soft tube one. I use that all the time. That's like one of my go-to saturation plugins.
Awesome.
As long as you understand how it's used and why you use it, that's really what's more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Question here from Joy. We are super beginner in this. Should we wait and book a call after we've got some other basic training under our belt, or sign up for some courses first, or just book a call?
Troy, right?
Joy.
I'm sorry, Joy. No, book a call, because you probably are thinking, am I too amateur for this? It's like, well, if you're serious about this, let's find out. So what you'll do is you'll get on a call. It'll either be with me or one of our team members, and we'll just find out. And we'll just tell you, hey, Joy, like you don't need to be focusing on this. We've identified that maybe it's this. After hearing what you said, it's this. You got to go back to the drawing board and do this, and then we could send you resources to help. But the best way to do that is to book a call and find out. We'll walk you through that whole process, and it might be one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, I really underestimated where I'm at. But no, we work with like quote unquote beginners all the time, and they realize, man, I'm much more cut out for this than sort of the hard-headed semi-pro person. You know, it just truly depends, and we really just have to get on a call to find out. There's no one size fits all to this. Hopefully that's helpful, Joy. I'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, awesome. So again, guys, if you want to book a call, mastering.com/session. All the sessions for this week and this month have blocked out. So when you get to that page, just click on the little arrow or click where it says view next month to look at the calendar for February. And there's still some slots next week.
Rob, if I have to extend it, let me know.
I'm keeping an eye on it. So yeah, you can either go click the button if you're still on Easy Webinar, or click the link, or go to mastering.com/session to book your call. Question here from Jared, and a few people asked about automation as well. So, do you often use automation in your mastering sessions, or do you try to find a general settings that work for a track as a whole? And if you do automate, what parameters do you find yourself commonly automating?
Great question, Jared. I don't automate ever. I have all these strong reasons why, but here's what I do, since you're asking what I do. Automation is trying to address not the problem that you think it is, which is, oh, each section of the song needs to have a different feel. No, it doesn't. You need to zoom out more. 30,000 foot view, not 10,000, not 5,000 foot, 30,000 foot view. If you force yourself to have a setting that applies to the entire, not only the entire song, but the entire project, that is more difficult than automating. And once you can do that, you really master at mastering, because now you know how to listen for things. It allows you to listen more critically and make more critical decisions. I'm about to open up a can of worms here. It's why I stray away from multi-band compression, is because it's trying to blend in the EQ side of things. I'd venture to say if you can't get an amazing sound and master with just one EQ, just one compressor, and just one limiter, then you're not a true, real pro. Although I do use that stuff. Don't hear me wrong, but if you restrict yourself to only a few things and not do automation, it'll cause you to ask different questions when you approach, which changes you from the inside out, which makes you a better engineer. Hopefully that makes sense. Forgot your name. Hopefully that makes sense.
Jared. Awesome.
Jared, right. Sorry, Jared.
Let's see here. So question from Ella. Does the DAW U-Matter use? As everyone says, Pro Tools is the one to use. But the question really is, does the DAW U-Matter? Do you use Matter?
Ella, that's a great question. No, it doesn't. Pro Tools, Logic, FL Studio. We have people that use GarageBand. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. It's how you use it. I'm talking about mastering now. If you're talking about, oh, I need to create what's a good DAW. Okay, Ableton's great because there's all these, sounds inside of it and it's good for creating. Oh, I need to record a live band. Okay, let's do Pro Tools. Like that stuff's different. But with mastering, no, it doesn't matter. We work with all these different types of DAWs. It's all about how you approach it as opposed to the DAW or the DAW, as you would say, Rob. Sorry, I had to.
There's no one else. Is that a British thing?
Well, I'm South African, but me and my brother are the only ones with American accents. But our parents and all of our family say that too.
DAW.
We say da.
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 Question from Steve. So this is a good one for people kind of like working with mastering engineers. How much headroom do you need to work when you receive the file for mastering?
The standard operating procedure or best practices is, 3 to 6 decibels. But what we care about is deeper than that. It's not necessarily the amount of headroom. It's the dynamics that's happening. So for example, if we have a track that we receive what we're about to master with a ton of headroom, but it's just a brick wall, we'll push back and be like, hey, what's going on here? So it's not about headroom, it's about dynamic. But to be fair to your question, we need to have some headroom. Um, if you're using all analog gear, it's actually best not to have a lot of headroom because you gain stage it nicely. And I show you how to do all that in the 6th and 7th week of working together, and the 9th week as well. But um, the a more practical sort of answer or approach to this is if you don't have a lot of headroom, it's 2 reasons. 1, you did something on the mix that you need to take off, or 2, everything's fine. You just pushed it hot, which is fine. Turn it down. Take the file and turn it down. If everything else is fine, add some headroom, and then you're good to go. If you're using analog gear, don't turn it down too much because the analog gear does something to it. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, awesome. Question from Chris. Do you personally use visual analyzers to aid in mastering? And if so, how much?
Great question, Chris. I give y'all, like, if you were to like join our program, for instance, like I give you a specific visual analyzer to use to start out with. Eventually you want to not rely on it and just rely on your ears. I call it your engineers, as cheesy as that sounds. It is as
Love
cheesy
it.
as it sounds. It's I stole that from one of my mentors. Because I kept using visual analyzers and he like figuratively slapped me and said, dude, you're not using your engineers. I was like, what are you? Anyway, so I passed it down. So my mentor told me that. Now I tell everybody, use your engineers. I use the Waves PAZ analyzer to understand the sonic spectrum on a 30,000 foot view with like a 400 millisecond response rate. It just lets me see everything from a great bigger picture. Very helpful. Very helpful. Eventually, and I will press you to do this once you start working with me, is you want to move away from it, but absolutely use it if I need it. Absolutely. But we get you to a place, especially in the 9th week of working, where you don't even need visual analyzers to understand how loud things should be. We calibrate your room to where you turn it up and go, okay, that's loud enough for Spotify. It's ninja level stuff. We go into it, but that would be the hope, is that you eventually get there.
Awesome. So the questions are kind of starting to slow down, guys. So we'll do a few more, but again, if you want to book your call, do it now because we're going to be wrapping up soon-ish. And like Blake said, this is just kind of a special thing he's doing for you guys. So if you've been on the fence, kind of now's your chance. And we'll do a couple more questions, and then I'll kind of let you wrap up. Breaks, Blake. Oh my god, I just called you Break. That's weird.
That's okay, Robert.
Probably because of this. Another question from Jared. Do you use stereo expander plugins or prefer to use mid-side EQ to get a wide stereo image, or is that something that comes from the mix?
Thank you so much, Jared. It's something that comes from the mix. I do not use stereo imaging plugins. I'll tell you why. It's not actually adding anything. It's adding phase. So phasing is a way to have an illusion of a stereo effect. But on the mastering side of things, you don't want to do that. You're just adding problems. You said it's something you do in the mix. I never use stereo imaging plugins. And if a mix is too centered, I go back to the mix. I have a high bar with that. You don't ever want to do that. There are some plugins that help with stereo imaging. Here's a little trick. I hate tips and tricks, but here's a little trick. If you use a mono compressor plugin like an LA2A, on a stereo mix, it'll actually help with the stereo imaging, just so you know. But stay away from the whole mid-side stereo imaging phasing stuff. It's putting a band-aid on something by making it worse. We go into that mainly in week 7 and 9 because if you do that for vinyl, it'll mess up everything.
Yeah. Awesome. So Joy asked, if you already booked a call but the application survey didn't load, how do you get back into that? They'll get an email, right? If they're having trouble filling out the survey. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Joy. I don't know what's going on there. If the call's booked, it's booked. But we might cancel it accidentally because we didn't see anything. But you should be able to you should be getting emails to say, hey, we saw you filled out this thing, but you didn't fill out a survey. It should be figured out by then, but we'll reach out to you. We'll reach out and see like, hey, we saw you didn't fill out a survey, and that'll clear it up. But I'm sorry that you're running into that, Joy. Hopefully it's just a one-off thing.
Yeah, Absolutely. Question here from, which one should we do? Yeah, this is a good question. Daryl, as a mastering engineer, how do you tell a client their mixes suck?
Daryl, great question. If you become an objective kind of truth speaker, mastering person, you don't have to convince them of much. What you do is you say this. You say um, two things. One, if you do what I'm about to say, it's going to make my job easier. Two, your final master is going to sound so much better. Okay, you ready? And they're like all ears. Then you just say, here's what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing a lot of separation from the kick drum and the bass drum. What I need you to do is put a high pass filter on that bass guitar, or sorry, the bass guitar on the kick drum. I need you to put a high pass filter on that bass guitar at like 80 hertz so that the kick drum can shine through, maybe even boost a little bit at 60. That'll really clear things up. Oh my gosh, thank you. This is why I freaking paid you, right? They'll write all that stuff down. You can say that, or you can say the low end just sucks. There's nothing I can do here. That's not helpful. You got to give them specific objective stuff. So luckily, if you brand yourself as a mastering person, which is like something we help you do, like this imposter syndrome thing that we go through, if you brand yourself as such, they'll almost never push back. They won't say, oh, but I tried this. It's like whatever you say, as long as you give them specific action items on their mix, then it's great. I've never had an issue with this, to be honest.
Cool.
Great question, Daryl.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed asked, how much time investment in each week for the program?
It totally depends, Ed. It's go at your own pace and it never ends. So it's like an ecosystem. It's not like you're done and then you're done. It's like I have people coming back to me on calls like this, one-on-one, 2 years later after they've signed a big major record label deal and they need to look over a contract and so forth. So it's more of an ecosystem and a community. The content itself is always evolving and always changing and interactive as well. But to be fair to your question, it's 100% tailored to your own thing. I've seen full-time moms go through this. I've seen full-time software engineers and full-time dads and so forth go through it, and they spend an hour or two a week and they still get through it within a few months. It's not just the content, it's the action items. You might run into an action item at the end of a module and go, dang, there's so much work I need to do with my room or whatever, and you spend a couple weeks doing that. But just hear you me, we've had some of the busiest people go through this, and it's totally fine. We've had people do this where this is the only thing they do, and within a few weeks, they're up and running and they're making money mastering for others. So I'd be curious to hear your specific situation, Ed, I think is what your name was. Ed, if you get on a call, like we'll try to unpack your schedule and see what you're doing, and I'll just tell you what it might be for you because it's different for everybody.
Awesome. And guys, we are kind of getting
the
to the end here. So mastering.com/session, book your strategy session with Blake or someone else on the team, completely free. And that's going to really help you get to that next level with your own mixes, but also like Blake just mentioned, potentially start offering that as a service to your clients if you already have them, or that's now a skill you can go out and start monetizing too. So mastering.com/session, and it's getting pretty full now. So we're running out of slots, but I think we should be good. I'm not sure we need to extend it, Blake.
Okay, I'd be happy to if we have to, but just let me know.
Yeah, we'll do. Ella asked, can I sign up for a call even if I'm a college student?
Especially if you're a college student. Are you joking? I'm thinking of six college students that I personally am working with right now. They're my favorite because they're the most hungry and they're studying and they're really smart. So please do. It's not like you're signing up to it's not like you're signing up for a 30-year mortgage. You're signing up for a call, and we're gonna unpack whatever we need. And so, yes, please. I love college students.
An interesting question here from Unreal Panda. Great name too.
Great name.
Why did you start giving these courses?
Unreal Panda, here's why I did this. Because 5 years ago, I started getting a lot of questions from my mastering clients, and it was this. It was, Blake, the reason why we pay you to do this isn't because we just like your gear or your mastering. Is every time we give you a final mix, you push back on our mixes to get our mixes to another level, and we just need to see what you're doing and how you're thinking. And I had so many people asking me that question. These are my tight clients, the people that are working and that are producing themselves and mixing themselves. I had so many people ask me that question. It got to the point where over the course of 3 or 4 months, about 30 clients of mine reached out and said, "Could we fly to your studio and like see what you do?" And I said, I was kind of afraid I'd work myself out of a job, to be honest. um, but I said, screw it, let's do it. Just because I love helping people and I love doing this. And so we had 23 people come and they paid their way there. I charged a little bit for it and it was fun. But these are clients that I've been working with for years, right? And some big names, some amateur guys, all this stuff, guys and gals all across the board. And I showed them what I'm doing and I kind of turn around and everybody's jaws are figuratively on the floor. Not because I'm doing this amazing stuff, because they're like light bulbs. Like, now I see what you're hearing. If I would have known that, I would have done this in the recording process. I would have done this in my writing. And I saw mastering as this thing that trickled down all the way to the writing process. And here's what happened. Two things happened. One, I enjoyed it so much. And two, I never mastered for any one of those people again. They started mastering themselves, and their masters sounded better than if I were to master it. Not because they became better than me, maybe, but because they're the ones that had the original sound in their head. So that's what happened, and a lot of them started offering these services to their clients and started raising their prices for mixing and so forth. So I was kind of brought on with all of them as sort of a consultant to help build their businesses and work with them. And that's how it all started. It was out of a need for my own clients. That's when I was like, boom, we're doing this. Mastering.com, let's go. So it came out of a need. And I saw people's music transform for the better. If I got out of the way, I just needed to show them how to do it so that they could replicate the sound they have in their head. That's the honest to God answer.
Love it. And we've had this question a few times. How did you meet your mentors?
A lot of luck, to be honest. But now that I think about it, I wouldn't be where I was unless I had mentors. I honestly just kept my eyes open. I like followed people that I really trusted. I paid money for a couple of them. But if you keep your eyes open and realize I need a mentor, I need a mentor, I need a mentor, it's almost like law of attraction kind of thing where they'll just present themselves. This is exactly what I needed, right? That's it's like when you buy a new car, then you see the car wherever you go. As soon as you start saying I need a mentor, they'll present themselves. How I did it was my first one is I knew somebody in the field that knew a recording studio owner, and I asked to be mentored by them, and I paid them money to do so. And that expedited everything for me. That was my first mentor. Once you're in, you start meeting everybody, and you just start getting mentored by everybody and start asking questions and paying for mentorship. And man, I probably spent a total of $20,000 of mentorship over the past 10, 15 years. And like, I'd much rather do that than pay $100,000 and go to get a bachelor's degree or whatever, because I've made money and this is what I do full time. Now I help others do it. So I have to thank my mentors for sure.
Absolutely. So I think we'll do a couple more here. So if you're on the fence, now's the time to book your call. Mastering.com/session. We'll do a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. So Bruce asked, how does the skill set for a mixer differ from a mastering engineer?
Great question, Bruce. It depends what you're doing, Bruce, but if you are doing mixing and mastering, they feed each other. You mix for the master, you master for the mix kind of thing. But the main shift that happens is the ability to look at the bigger picture. That's the best way I can put it, to get the 30,000 foot view. Mixing is all in. I mean, you're in the weeds. Every once in a while, you'll take a step back and listen to things on a whole. But you're so in the weeds that's why a lot of professional mixing engineers send off their stuff to be mastered, because they don't know what they're listening to. They're blind to it. They're deaf to it. They don't understand. They know it sounds good, but they're just like, I'm lost now. I'm too in it. But if you are able to maintain that outside perspective, the 30,000 foot view, that's how you are able to marry the two. So again, the best way to do that is after you're done with your final mix, bounce it out, put it in your own session, and then listen to it. Oh my gosh, your mind will be totally shifted once you do that.
Amazing. So I think we'll do one more here. Troy asked,
it better be good. Can't wait, Troy.
Maybe we'll do 2 more. Troy asked if I
Okay.
already spoke. This is kind of not a super like huge question. If I already spoke with one of your recruiters 2 months ago about joining the course, do I have to resubmit an application to be able to join the program?
No, I would just reach out to somebody that we talked to before and say, I'm ready to go. And then we'll jump back on another call and see if we can do something. That's what I would say to you, Troy.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Let's find a good one to end with.
I can't wait.
Oh God, pressure's on.
It's going to change everybody's lives.
Pressure's on. Okay, this is a good one. Nicolay asked, is the approach very different from mastering EDM and pop/acoustic/indie?
Love it. The answer is no. Mixing, of course it's different. Final mix bus, stereo compression, of course it's different. Mastering those, no. I teach you how to basically have a mental template to apply to every genre. This is truly 30,000 foot view stuff. So mastering EDM, mastering pop, and all this stuff, mastering engineers cover it all. In order to cover it all, it's not like they have 6 different templates they use. They have one with 3 or 4 different mental templates, and they keep 30,000 foot views over the entire thing, which helps them to go into different genres. So imagine for a second that you could have a mental template that applies to any sort of genre. That's how zoomed out we're talking about here. So short answer is no. No. It's genre agnostic. At least that's my philosophy. That's what I kind of teach and help people.
Awesome. Cool. I think that's definitely a good one to end on. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything to end on?
The only closing thoughts is I think you should take all of this information and then just go to town and apply all of it. And hopefully it's helpful. My main thing is I just want this to be helpful for everybody. The second thing is if like you're on the fence, like, I'm not really sure if I'm cut out for this or serious, like just book a call anyways. Cause like, I just like talking to people and our team loves talking to people. We specifically are doing this for you guys. Like I told our whole team, hey, people from Musician on Mission are going to be chatting with us. Let's get ready. And I just want to talk with you, and there's no pressure, man. I mean, like, for real. If you're on the fence, just do it. I'll let you know if you're like, hey, this is what you need to do. Like any sort of touching with a mentor is going to help you either way. And I promise you that's going to be the main thing that'll be the most helpful for you this year. So, and thank you guys. I'm so thankful that you guys all jumped on. And thank you, Rob. You're the man. I highly respect you, and I'm glad we got to do this.
Thanks, man. Yeah, dude, thank you so much for your time as well. It's like people are loving it. All the comments are amazing. I think people got like a ton of value out of this, and especially it seems like the Q&A went down really well as well. So yeah, Blake, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
So for anyone who we'll wrap up now, but if you open the page, just, we're going to end this now, but you can still open the page, mastering.com/session, or just click the link that I've been kind of chucking in the chat. You can just open that in a new tab now, and then you can book it. But I think we'll wrap it up there. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I love doing these live webinars. It's been a while, and I really miss it. So I think we're going to try and do more of these. So thank you so much. Hope you come away with this with a ton of value. Definitely make sure you implement. None of this is useful until you actually put it into action. So go and put this into practice. Open up that page if you're interested in getting on a call with Blake and his team. Like he said, just get on. If you're unsure, just do it. It's going to be great. You're going to come away with that call with a ton of value as well. So awesome. Thanks, guys. Blake, thank you again. And see you all.
Thanks, Rob.
See you all.
Yeah, you got it. See you guys.